Hello guys, welcome to another video. Tensura X Fate, When the Time Reincarnated as Human by Vericishi. Chapter 16 Artemis and Archer vs Rin, did she win? Rin's pav as if dealing with Satoru and his ridiculous fairy wasn't enough. Now I've got Archer and Artemis arguing about of all things video games. I mean, seriously? We're supposed to be preparing for a war, and these two are debating the merits of Dungeons and Dragons versus whatever games Archer played in his previous summonings. I sigh, rubbing my temples as I try to tune them out, but it's impossible. Archer's getting all nostalgic about some Grail war he was summoned into during the 1980s, where his master was apparently a huge nerd. He's going on and on about how D&D was a masterpiece of storytelling, a game where the player's decisions really mattered. Typical Archer, always looking for something that reflects his overly complicated life. And don't even get me started on World of Darkness. Artemis chimes in, clearly on the same wavelength as Archer. The depth, the lore, the character development, it's practically a work of art. It's not just a game, it's an experience, something that transcends mere gameplay. Archer nods in agreement, and for a moment, I think they're about to start a fan club or something. Exactly. Games like those offer more than just a challenge. They offer a reflection of the human condition, the struggle between light and dark, good and evil. They're practically timeless. I can't believe what I'm hearing. They're acting like these old tabletop games are the pinnacle of human achievement or something. I mean, yeah, I get that D&D is cool, but come on, Honkai Impact is where it's at. Please, I interject, crossing my arms and giving them both an exasperated look. As if those old games could even compare to Honkai Impact. The graphics, the combat system, the story, it's on a whole different level. I mean, have you even seen how detailed the character designs are? Not to mention the lore. You're dealing with gods, alternate dimensions, and some seriously badass female protagonists. Artemis raises an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. Oh, really? Gods and alternate dimensions, you say? Sounds like someone took a page out of D&D's book. Archer, now fully aligned with Artemis, chuckles. It's cute that you think your little mobile game can hold a candle to the classics. But let's be honest here, Rin. Honkai Impact is fun and all, but it doesn't have the same depth. It's all flash, no substance. I can feel my blood boiling. How dare they? I'm about to launch into a full-on defense of my favorite game when Satoru, ever the instigator, steps in with that same irritatingly calm tone he always uses. How about we settle this with something new? He says, casually leaning against the wall, clearly enjoying the chaos he's created. I've been thinking about upgrading Infinite Space, you know, the game I created a couple of years ago. It's already got NPCs with their own personalities, backstories, and even emotions. They can talk to players, mimic their movements, hold jobs, the works. Archer and Artemis both look intrigued, and I can already tell where this is going. But what if, Satoru continues, I added a new system, something like a many worlds interpretation. Imagine a game where the world generates endlessly based on not just the player's actions, but even the NPCs. Each choice, each interaction, creates a new branch, a new reality. And it all happens naturally, without updates. Now they're both completely hooked. Great. Just what I need. Satoru fanning the flames of their geeky argument with his stupid game ideas. And of course, he's not going to stop there. The best part? Satoru adds with a smirk. I won't even need to add a story or dialogue. The game will write itself, with every character, every world, becoming a unique creation. It'll be like nothing you've ever seen before. Artemis looks at Satoru with something akin to awe. That sounds amazing. It's like a D&D campaign that never ends, with infinite possibilities. Archer nods, clearly impressed. And all without the constraints of a preset narrative. Truly a game for the ages. I'm standing there, listening to all this, and I can feel the defeat washing over me. My argument about Honkai Impact being the best game ever? Completely overshadowed by Satoru's insane plans. Not that I'd ever admit it, but even I'm a little curious about this infinite space thing. I mean, come on, who wouldn't be? But I'm not about to let them know they've won. No way. So I do what any self-respecting older sister would do in this situation. I huff, cross my arms, and turn my back on them. Whatever, I mutter, more to myself than anyone else. It's not like Infinite Space will ever be as popular as Honkai Impact anyway. Just you wait. Artemis and Archer exchange a glance, and I swear I see a smirk tugging at the corners of Satoru's mouth. They're totally going to gang up on me from now on, aren't they? Just my luck. As I walk away, trying to maintain some semblance of dignity, I can hear them starting to plan out their next gaming session together. Archer's talking about strategies, Artemis is already thinking up character backstories, and Satoru's throwing in his 2 cents about world building. Great. Now I've got to deal with not just 1, but 3 massive gaming nerds, and to top it all off, they've somehow turned this into an S versus Rin thing. I just know they're going to tease me about this for weeks. But hey, at least I'm not completely alone in my love for Honkai Impact. Kiana, the little fire fairy, is still flitting around the room, leaving trails of sparkly magic in her wake. Maybe I'll get her to team up with me next time. After all, if I'm going to face off against these 3, I'll need all the help I can get. Chapter 17 Rin vs Artemis Fight Part 1 Rin's Pav. Let's fight and practice right here, Satoru says, his tone all too casual, like he's suggesting a quick game rather than a full-on magecraft battle. I can't help but raise an eyebrow at him. In this room? I ask, unable to hide the skepticism in my voice. The space we're in is modest. Barely enough to swing a sword, let alone conduct a serious fight. Don't you think it's a bit small for that? But Satoru just smirks, and I immediately know something's up. Small, huh? He echoes, that infuriating grin plastered on his face. And then, with a flick of his wrist, everything changes. The air around us ripples as if reality itself is bending to his will. The walls of the room stretch and twist, expanding at an impossible rate. My breath catches in my throat as the once cozy space balloons outwards, the walls soaring up and away until they're distant horizons. What was once a cramped little room now stretches on for kilometers, 10 kilometers in height, length, and breadth to be precise. It's like we've been dropped into an open field, yet the house remains unchanged from the outside. I stand there, staring at the now vast expanse, utterly dumbfounded. I've seen Satoru pull off some incredible feats before, creating Artemis, messing around with quantum mechanics, even building that insane AI system. But this is something else. Spatial manipulation on this scale, with such precision, is on an entirely different level. And yet, he's just standing there, looking ridiculously pleased with himself, as if he's done nothing more than change the channel on the TV. Before I can say anything, he adds a barrier, one that nullifies explosions, enhances healing, and who knows what else. With a simple wave of his hand, the space becomes a perfect battleground, no collateral damage, no risk of destroying the house. It's like he's created a pocket dimension for us to fight in, all within the confines of a single room. I grit my teeth, my initial shock giving way to irritation. You could have just suggested we train outside, I say, trying to keep my voice steady, but the amazement still leaks through. Satoru shrugs, still wearing that smug grin. Where's the fun in that? Besides, now we don't have to worry about the weather or anyone interrupting us. In this way, Artemis doesn't have to worry about blowing up half the neighborhood if she gets a little too excited. Artemis, who's been quietly observing all this while still playing with her flames, gives a lazy wave of her hand as if to say, "You're welcome." She's sitting on the ground like some kind of unruly teenager, her legs sprawled out in front of her, mixing her magical flames with the mundane ones from a matchstick. The wood she's using as her experiment isn't even close to burning. She's manipulating the temperature so perfectly that the flames just dance around each other, neither consuming the other. But my focus is on Satoru. As amazing as this feat is, there's something bothering me, something practical that needs addressing. You're doing all of this massive space manipulation, like it's nothing, I say, narrowing my eyes at him. Doesn't that use a ridiculous amount of mana? Are you trying to drain yourself dry just to show off? His grin widens at that, and he looks at me like I've just asked the dumbest question in the world. Mana? Oh, Rin, you really underestimate me. He pauses, clearly savoring the moment before delivering his explanation. You see, I've got a little trick up my sleeve. I've created a subspace where I store my mana, kind of like a backup battery, but on a massive scale. I blink at him, taken aback. A subspace? You've been storing mana in a subspace? How does that even work? Oh, it's simple, really, he says, waving his hand dismissively, as if storing mana in a subspace is something everyone does. The subspace is constantly generating mana, which means the mana I use is pretty much instantly regenerated. There's no real loss, just a continuous flow of energy. So no, I'm not draining myself. If anything, I'm barely scratching the surface of what's available. He's so damn smug, it's infuriating. But I can't deny that I'm intrigued. No, fascinated. Creating a subspace that not only stores mana but also generates it? That's borderline revolutionary. Even the most advanced mages struggle with mana conservation, but here he is, casually solving the problem like it's nothing. The implications of this are huge. But instead of showing any of that awe, I cross my arms and glare at him, determined not to give him the satisfaction. And you're just telling me this now? What else have you been hiding, huh? Satoru chuckles, clearly enjoying my frustration. Well, I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information at once, sis. Besides, this is all just basic stuff, nothing too complicated. He says this like it's the most natural thing in the world. Like creating subspaces and manipulating reality is something everyone does on a casual Tuesday. Basic, I echo, my voice dripping with sarcasm. If this is basic, I'd hate to see what you consider advanced. He shrugs again, that annoying grin still plastered on his face. Maybe I'll show you sometime, but for now, why don't we get started? Artemis, you up for a little sparring? Artemis, who's still completely engrossed in her fire experiment, looks up with mild interest. Sure, why not? As long as I get to try out some new tricks I've been working on. I roll my eyes, but I can't help the small smile tugging at the corners of my lips. Despite everything, the idea of sparring with Artemis in this insane space is kind of exciting. No restrictions, no holding back, it's the perfect opportunity to really push my limits, and, annoyingly enough, I have Satoru to thank for that. As Artemis and I prepare to square off, Satoru starts rambling again, this time about the physics behind his subspace and how it all ties into entropy. You see, Rin, it's all about balancing the energy states within the subspace. By managing entropy, I can ensure that the energy flow remains consistent, which means... Enough. I cut him off, glaring at him with what I hope is a deadly look. I don't need a physics lecture right now. Save it for someone who cares. Satoru just laughs, clearly unfazed by my outburst. Fine, fine. But you really should learn more about it sometime. It's fascinating stuff, you know. Yeah, I'll get right on that, I mutter under my breath, my focus shifting back to Artemis. I can't let Satoru's antics distract me. This is still a fight, and I need to be ready. But even as I prepare myself, I can't shake the nagging thought in the back of my mind. Just how powerful has Satoru become? And if this is just the beginning, what else is he capable of? But I push those thoughts aside for now. There's a battle to be fought, and I'm not about to let my annoying little brother get the better of me. Not today. Not ever. Ready? Artemis asks, a sly grin spreading across her face as she finally stands up, the wood she was playing with now nothing more than a small pile of ashes. I nod, raising my hands, ready to unleash a barrage of spells. Always, and with that, the fight begins.